Dune 2 is kind of like an angrier, sexier, slightly grown up version of Dance Moms. Except for instead of everyone wanting their kid to be like the solo dancer, they want their kid to rule the universe and be the messiah. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tea with Bree. If you're new here, welcome. This is a place that we grab our tea, we get cozy, and we indulge in a little bit of harmless girly gossip. We chit chat about pop culture. And if that sounds good to you, join us, subscribe below. Today's tea is a honey lavender stress relief. Cause y'all, I need it. And the mug is, I feel like this is like my macaroni mug. It reminds me of the old school macaroni and I'm obsessed. Get the 360 view, she's everything. So today we're talking about Dune Part 2. If you don't want Dune spoilers, baby girls, I would have thought the title would have clued you in, but like leave now. I'm so sorry. Watch it, come back, and let's chat about it. But if you don't want any spoilers, bye-bye. I'm gonna be doing a little bit of recapping for Dune Part 1, and then we're gonna go right into Dune Part 2. So if you don't want that, make sure to look below in the description and look at my timestamps and skip around as needed. Otherwise, let's get into it. So Dune Part 1. Let me just recap Dune Part 1 for you baby girls. Dune 1 is giving mama's boy. It's giving space realness. It's spicy, literally. So Dune starts with a big intro to the desert planet of Arrakis, where all the world's or galaxy's spice is harvested. Spice is really valuable. I honestly cannot remember why exactly, but just know that it is, and it's really important, and the whole galaxy is fighting over it. It's kind of like a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte in early fall. Like all the girlies want it and they're not sure why, do you know? So the story follows young Willy Wonka, also known as Paul Atreides, heir to House Atreides, as his family takes control of the planet Arrakis from their rivals, House Harkonnen. This is an example truly of pretty privilege at its finest, because look at House Atreides. Serving. And then let's look at House Harkonnen. Yeah, so you see what I'm talking about when I say pretty privilege. You're hot, you're given planets in this galaxy. That's just how it goes. However, these hotties have barely been on the planet when they get betrayed by their doctor.
Don't trust medical professionals.
And most of them get murdered AF. With the big exception of young Wonka, aka Paul, and his mommy dearest, Jessica. Y'all, we need to talk about Jessica. Jessica is giving big witch energy. She's a member of this ultra exclusive, super creepy, women's only cult.
Support women's cults.
Called the Bene Gesserit. When I say this, I think of Benny and the Jets. Just me. The Bene Gesserit are all about like mind reading and shit and like causing a stir, causing a little bit of drama. They're that girl on The Bachelor who's just there to start shit, and I am here for it. So young Wonka and cult mama Jessica are lost in the desert when they meet the local people of Arrakis, also known as the Fremen. The Fremen are point blank just blue-eyed hotties who eventually agree to teach young Wonka and cult mama the ways of the desert so that they can survive there. Young Wonka is also realizing at this time that he has like big psychic energy, and he feels like his vibe, his journey, his path is the desert. So he is trying to learn these ways. He's trying to master them. He's trying to ingratiate himself with this Fremen group. Plus, he's got his eye on a real hottie named Johnny. And so that's pretty much part 1. All the homies are kind of embarking into the desert. House Harkonnen is living large, thinking they have control of Arrakis again, and House Atreides is mostly dead. You're welcome. All right, so part 2 opens up with our boy, young Willy Wonka, Paul Atreides, getting a lot of help from the Fremen, aka Chani and Stilgar, who's a man of infinite talent and humor. Shani and Stilgar really know the ways of the desert. Like they be loving that sand. And they're teaching Paul some wild stuff, like how to sabotage the Harkonnens' spice harvesting machines, how to ride sandworms and shit. Meanwhile, our favorite cult mommy is pregnant, and she is really giving dance mom energy. She's really giving USC rower scandal in that she will do pretty much anything to get her son to be famous. What mother can't relate? She even goes so far as to drink this like blue goo poison shit that's supposed to make her die, but actually makes her even stronger and crazier because now her unborn child, still within the casings of her womb, is now speaking to her on a daily basis. Just a little PSA, if you do a drug that makes you feel like the unborn child is speaking to you, you're not well. So now that she's drinking the blue goo, she's obsessed with getting Paul to drink the blue goo. I mean, it's giving Ring, right? You watch the movie, you have to have someone else watch the movie. Like, she's obsessed. We later also find out, small aside, that this blue goo is basically just sandworm piss, so... Young Wonka, meanwhile, is slowly winning over our girl Chani's heart, and also like slowly convincing this group of desert hotties that he's basically just like them. Basically because he can like moonwalk on the sand, and he can like ride a sandworm and whatnot and so forth. I swear to God, also, the sandworms in Dune were serving harder than they had any right to. Like, sandworm rights. Show these worms some freaking respect, okay? Eventually, House Harkonnen gets a little tired of young Wonka and Chani's shenanigans with destroying all the little spice harvesting machines. So they're like, we can't have our whole ROI ruined this year. Like, we need to put a stop to this. So the Baron, the guy in charge of House Harkonnen, he goes full dance mom as well. And he's like, my nephew will be the one to do this. So they basically replace on Arrakis the leader. So they send to Arrakis a younger, more sociopathic version of Mr. Clean. Sans eyebrows. They really decide that a sociopath is their best option to beat young Wonka at his own game, and they turn out to be low-key right, because the sociopath Mr. Clean immediately starts bombing everything, and that turns out to actually be a pretty effective way of getting the Fremen to leave the north where they harvest the spice. And while the Fremen are like, we need to leave, like, we're gonna get bombed, we're gonna die if we stay here, young Wonka is extremely conflicted about this, because again, he's in his psychic era, he's having visions, right? And these visions ain't good. They're basically just seeing everyone starving to death and dying if he goes to the south. So you would expect maybe like a slightly longer, more internal conflict about going to the south, but in reality, young Wonka basically stares at a rock for a couple minutes, kind of tears up a bit, and then says, yeah, I'll go south. So they head south on what? Our hero, the sandworms. And of course, cult mommy Jessica has already absolutely laid the way for young Wonka to arrive. She's been hyping him up like the second coming of Harry Styles down there. And where young Wonka was so conflicted about going south, he's now just like full send, Full Metal Alchemist, like, let's do this. When cult mommy is like, you need to drink this blue goo worm piss, Paul's kind of like, fuck it, let's do it. He doesn't die when drinking the blue goo worm piss poison. However, only because Chani, his situationship, just saves his life and then slaps him in the face. Name a more iconic duo. He also develops the temperament of a more angry, slightly more psychopathic Mariah Carey. He's giving full diva at this point. And to be fair, he does find out that this man is his maternal grandfather. So if I found out that was my grandpappy, I would start, it would really mess up my shit, you know? Anyway, young Wonka starts really giving fascist energy. He basically storms into the Fremen temple, their place of worship, and reads a few futures for a few people, and then basically demands that everyone kind of like bows down and starts to worship him. Yikes. And most people buy into it, but not old girl. Old girl's like, who the does this man think he is? Boy could hardly ride a sandworm 3 weeks ago. She tries to tell people that young Wonka is not, in fact, Harry Styles reincarnate, but no one's having it. No one wants to hear it. They're like, Messiah, Messiah. And when people start calling you Messiah, it's usually the beginning of the end. Do you know what I mean? So Paul achieves full pop star status, and needless to say, Dan's mom Jessica is extremely pleased by this. Even more so when young Wonka himself basically decides to call out the emperor of the galaxy universe. So very powerful kind of dude. And he's basically like, yo, I'm about to all your shit up. So what are you gonna do to stop me? The emperor decides, I don't think so. I'm not gonna let this little punk ass bitch talk to me like this. So he rolls down to Arrakis with the whole army, the whole family, the whole squad. And while the sandworms and the atomic bombs that Paul found are kind of decimating that army, Paul kind of corners the emperor and is kind of like, this is how it's gonna be. I'm gonna be the emperor now. I'm the new emperor now. Like any man called out, he doesn't really respond well to this, so they decide they have to fight. The emperor is old and crusty, so he names a champion for himself. And who else is he gonna name but sociopathic Mr. Clean Sans Eyebrows? Young Wonka and Mr. Clean Sans Eyebrows fight in a very homoerotic scene where young Wonka almost dies, but eventually does prevail and kills sociopathic Mr. Clean. He then demands, like the diva that he is, that he's gonna marry the emperor's daughter. Old girl Chani is just listening to all this like, the hell you are. He was just telling her that he loved her like a hot second ago, and now he's like, I'll take the emperor's daughter, please. She storms off. She's pissed. I mean, rightfully so, because her man's gone. Sailing off the deep end. So part 2 basically ends with Johnny storming off, Paul looking as fascist as ever, and cult mommy Jessica extremely happy. She's talking to her unborn baby girl about how now the holy war can begin. And you kind of get the vibe that she wants it to begin. It's not just a vibe, it's very blatant. There's no subtext here. And you can kind of see how Paul ended up this way. I mean, granddaddy, mommy, you know, it's like, apple tree, do you know what I mean? And that's pretty much Dune part 2. Okay, what's my overall review? What are my thoughts? Let's get into it. First of all, before I rate this, I just have to say, this movie is winning an Oscar for hottest cast of all time, hands down, feet up, absolutely no contest. They literally said, like, Dune Part 1, hot rating, like 5 flame emojis. Dune Part 2, they were like, make it hotter, like more conventionally attractive people, more. That's Dune Part 2. I mean, Best Actor, I would say the nomination would have to go to my mans, I should say. There's a lot of them. Stunning, ethereal, majestic, a performance that has never been seen before, never will be seen again, and iconic is all I can say about that. Best supporting role, I would say has to go to Timothée Chalamet's jawline. I mean, my hands are tied on this one, guys. My hands are tied. I'm giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was good. It was exciting. There was character growth. There was character development. There was drama. There was sexy sociopaths. I think the thing I struggle with the most is how the screen would go from absolute darkness in like a cave or underground to an absolute blinding white light of the desert. I swear to God, I was like, whoa. I wish I'd had my sunglasses on for part of it. Also, I'm just gonna be real. 3 hours for your girl is a long time to sit in one place, and I had to dock it a bit for that. 3 hours is just it's a little too long for me. But like, if you want to go to the movie theater and have a good time for a long ass time, Dune's your place. And I mean, regardless of like what you think about the plot, look at the cinematography. Like, look at these shots, truly stunning. The visual effects team, special effects, the cinematography, like I said, like, kudos, hands up, paws down, applause to you. Also, I loved the cameos. I mean, we had our absolute legend back from the first Dune, Space Desert Mouse, my king, my liege. And we also had Anya Taylor-Joy giving a fun little cameo as Unborn Fetus 1. Go girl. The new characters were really fun as well. I mean, sociopath Mr. Clean, played by Austin Butler, was truly a chilling performance. I was also just honestly impressed by like how bald you can make a man, it turns out. I feel like they were like balder, more bald. And honey, they achieved it. Baldest man I ever saw. I was also intrigued because I heard a lot of chatter about how this might be kind of perceived as like a white savior movie and people saying, oh, just another white savior. And I'm like, girl, were we watching the same movie? Because Paul is not giving savior. He drank that worm piss and he's not the same. Like, he's embodying big dictator energy. And it's not looking good for him or for anyone else at the end of Dune 2, truly. I have not read the book, so sorry to all you fundamentalists out there, but I'm putting my money on Zendaya, aka Johnny, aka old girl, because she is mad as hell and she can ride sandworms. It's kind of like, what doesn't she have besides a giant army of fangirls worshiping her? But I believe she can overcome that. I really feel like she's gonna stab Paul's ass. I feel like she's gonna kill him dead straight up. So I don't know if that's a spoiler or not because I haven't read the books, but it's giving lover's quarrel. It's giving when your situationship tells you he loves you one second and then promises to marry the emperor's daughter the next second. A woman scorned will get her revenge. And plus, Paul's ass deserves it. He's just fully lost the plot on this one. So anyway, that's what I'm hoping. If there's a Dune Part 3, hell yes, I will see it. And other than that, catch you next week.